Right, hello people. In today's video, I want to talk about kind of more in detail what's next for Fabio Wardley. Now, I did kind of touch on it in my recap video of what was a tremendous heavyweight fight, a tremendous British fight, a tremendous fight in general for the sport of boxing. You know, one of the greatest heavyweight fights you'll ever see. It really was absolutely amazing. But Fabio Wardley shipped an insane amount of damage in that fight. Damage you do not see dished out at heavyweight now. The typical kind of consensus is that the lighter weight divisions of boxing are more dangerous because you're taking a higher volume of trauma to the head, right? Because they hit less hard, and at heavyweight, you know, the fights hit harder. You're not going to take as much trauma to the head because you're just going to get knocked out, right? Which is ultimately better to be knocked out than take sustained damage. But Fabio Wardley took sustained damage at heavyweight. Now, as commendable as that is, I do not see him coming back and being the same fighter ever again, right? And Fabio Wardley was always a limited fighter, right? But I do not see him like the amount of punishment he withstood was insane. It was from Daniel Dubois of all people, right? Daniel Dubois is top three biggest hitters in the heavyweight division, right? You got to say Zhang and then maybe Dubois and then maybe Wardley, right? That's kind of the order in which it goes in. He's a fucking hellacious puncher, big banger, right? And Fabio Wardley, as commendable as it is, took those shots. He took them all. It didn't even go down. The man's made out of some different stuff, right? You know, there was a lot of things he could have done in that fight. I think it really did show how raw he is as a technical boxer, which we all knew, but, you know, it just went to show it more. I feel like his shot selection in this fight could have been a lot better. I feel like he could have paced himself a lot better, you know. With the shots being kind of what they were, it was kind of just a little set-up jab and a big right hand over the top. It just left him, you know, exhausted. He was committing to the shots and he wasn't picking his shots well, right? I feel like a jab to the body would have been just a big asset in this fight to keep kind of Dubois off of him, take a bit of gas out of him as Dubois was coming forward, and just, you know, maybe set up a shot over the top. You know, Dubois doesn't have the best guard, doesn't exactly catch shots in his elbows to the body. He doesn't really defend shots up top with his guard. Like, I'll give Dubois credit in this fight. His wedge defense was as good as it always is. You know, he kind of throws this kind of like jab to the chest, I'd say, and then when Fabio Wardley tries to loop a right hand over the top, it kind of bounces off Dubois' lead shoulder, which is a defense we've seen from Dubois work many times. Not against Usyk, of course, because, you know, the difference in stances, but against orthodox fighters, it tends to be remarkably effective, and that's kind of the only type of defense he has is his footwork and that. He's very limited defensively, but, you know, offensively, he's a fucking juggernaut. So yeah, it definitely highlighted how limited Fabio Wardley was. But we knew that going in. You know, I kind of picked him winning this fight on, you know, the fact of which that Dubois was so hittable, and just Wardley always finds a way. But he was always going to hit the level, right? The level in which where you just can't find that one shot to get you out anymore. It does happen. We all knew it was going to happen. I didn't know if it would necessarily be against Dubois. Not that Dubois isn't one of the best heavyweights in the world, but just stylistically, right? I thought Parker would stylistically be a bit of a trickier fight for Wardley than Dubois. Because Parker can be very elusive, but Parker decided to sit down the shots and go for it in that fight. So, you know, it is what it is. As for what's next for Fabio Wardley now, I think he should have a year out, but I foresee him being back at some point this year. Fighters and their egos, man, I don't know. Fabio Wardley doesn't strike me as a very egotistical boxer. He's a very level-headed person, but he's never been beat. He's never been beaten. That is a damage to the ego. Everyone has an ego, especially professional boxers. You know, Fabio Wardley is, as much as I say he's level-headed, I mean he's level-headed for a boxer. The man is, by normal standards, a delusional person. You know, he thinks he can, you know, he'd think he could beat Usyk, for example, and we all knew he can't. But that's the kind of level of delusion you need to be in boxing. So I could see him being back this year, later end of this year, but I could see him being back this year. I hope he doesn't, but as for what's next for him when he comes back, it's so tricky because he was always going to be the type of guy who was going to be hard to matchmake once he's been beat, because obviously you want to give him winnable fights. But every fight looks like an upward battle for Fabio Wardley, right? Because he's just so inexperienced and so limited, but he's done so well, you know, hats off to him, but I've got to be real. I don't mind the Murat Gassiev fight. That's not a bad fight. If Gassiev still has the regular title, we could say it's a world title fight. Do you know what I mean? Gassiev is proven to be very low volume at heavyweight. He's very good at finding a shot. He's proven to be very low volume, pretty defensively sound. He's only kind of been beaten in his career by good boxers like Usyk, who's the best, and Otto Wallin, who's decent. Fabio Wardley doesn't fit into that archetype, but with the way he's been fighting, despite Gassiev being a very well-schooled boxer, being pretty decent defensively, with a low volume at heavyweight, and the way he does kind of come in straight lines, I could see that being a good matchup for Fabio Wardley, a winnable fight. There's the likes of Zheli Zhang now, that might ring some alarm bells in some people's heads. Zheli Zhang being a big puncher, but Zhang's old. He hasn't got the work rate, he hasn't got the stamina to carry him to a long fight. Wardley's young enough, energetic enough, he's not going to lose that, I don't think. It's your durability he might lose, but we really don't know. He is made out of different stuff after all. Zhang's slow. Fairly hittable for someone who is so explosive like Fabio. This is, of course, going off if he is still somewhat what he was before. A Parker rematch maybe, but that'd be a very tough comeback fight. I'm kind of going off the name guys with name value and guys who would be good wins, but guys who would match up well with him. Parker would be a very tough matchup. Plus, we don't know what's going on with Parker, and I'd also quite like to see Parker versus Daniel Dubois next. And I'll explain that quickly. If we don't get Dubois versus Italma next, I think Joseph Parker deserves it. I know he's coming off a loss, but he built up a very, very strong case for him being a world title challenger before. He had that fight booked against Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois pulled out of the fight. He went on to fight Martin Bakole on short notice, then went on to fight Fabio Wardley. Lost the Fabio Wardley fight somewhat controversially by a stoppage. And that ended up being a world title. I think he deserves a shot. I know he lost his last fight, but it was controversial, and he should have already had a shot at a world title, and it should have been against Dubois. So I think that sells. I think that works. As for Fabio, though, getting back on track, Lawrence Okoli, maybe once that situation's dealt with, maybe him and Lawrence Okoli. That's an awkward fight, but we haven't seen someone try and rough Lawrence Okoli up at heavyweight. We saw it at cruiserweight, and Okoli didn't deal with it well. Doesn't know how to fight on the inside. I think, that's an interesting fight. I don't mind that fight. Plus, I don't think it's very dangerous. You could give him Martin Bakole. That's probably the limit of the danger factor is Martin Bakole, because Martin Bakole's been inactive. He's been out of shape in recent fights. He is very, very good on his day, but his defense is quite frankly poor. He's a very, very stationary target. Matches up well for Fabio, right? Fabio's got world-class punching power. If you can say anything about him, is world-class. He's got world-class punching power. Martin Bakole's proven to, he's not unbreakable. Parker dropped him. Granted, he's out of shape. Michael Hunter stopped him. I think that is probably the limit, because that would be I don't know how Bakole's being perceived at the minute. I still think he's got quite a bit of potential. I don't think he's what people are saying he was, the boogeyman, the man to beat everyone. I think he's very, very good, and I think he's very, very tricky. But he's like a step up from Jarrell Miller, if that makes sense. Jarrell Miller, I consider a very tough fight for anyone at heavyweight, but you should be beating him just with it. But he's a bit of a struggle, right? You might win all the rounds, but that you will have to work for it. I see Bakole as kind of a step up from that, if that makes sense. He's very similar in the fact he'll make you work for it, kind of that kind of fighter, right? Or Fabio should come back against someone like who Joshua was having his next fight against, Christian Prenga, I think his name is, fucking Christian Pringle. Someone like that, honestly, is probably the best bet. But like I said, fighters and their egos. fighters and their egos, man. I don't know. I hope he's doing well. Fucking headache he might, like, as someone who is a heavyweight myself and someone who sparred at heavyweight at a good level, fuck me, the headache that man's gonna have. Fucking hell, he's gonna be in agony. It's the worst thing. And he took a fucking worse beating than I've ever taken, and that's not me trying to brag. You know, never been there, Daniel Dubois, with as little experience as Fabio Wardley. So, hope he's doing well. You know, it was a great fight. He should just rest up, man. That's what he should be worrying about, you know. But I'm just speaking about this from, I just want to make content, basically. I'm just speaking about this for my own gain, let's be honest. But yeah, no, I hope he's doing well, man. Great fight. Can't wait to see what's next for him. I think it's going to be really interesting, and I hope he can get back to what he was. But don't know, man. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Goodbye.